lot of guys have mentioned quick decisions.
Yeah.
That you guys want them to make quicker decisions. Has that been kind of an emphasis?
Yeah, I think not always wait for the pick and roll. Like I think we're a high volume pick and roll team, which is great. Like I love pick and roll. You know, it's a big part of the NBA, but you know, I think there just can be more of a balance, right? So, you know, that's drive, kick, game, spacing, but not always 10 seconds left. We're going into a pick and roll. We have other things we can do. It's off ball screening, right? You know, you're allowed to cut, like in the old days, right? And that's, listen, I do think the game's evolving, ball movement, player movement, where it might have been was it 5, 6 years where it was just pick and roll in space.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of other things you can do in basketball. So I think that variety is really variety. So don't think, oh, we're not going to play pick and roll. No way. It's just a piece of it.
And just individually, Dean Wade's kind of had a varied role this season.
Mhm.
What do you see with it?
More than catch and shoot. Like I love Steve Novak. Remember Steve Novak?
Yeah.
I love it, but Steve was catch and shooting. He's one of the best in the, but Dean's that type of shoot, but I definitely want him to do more. Want him to get 6'9.5", cut.
Yeah.
At 6'9.5", go rebound. I think there's more. I just see more in there. Really, and again, we're not going to make that crazy shift, right? We still got to embrace his strength, but can we add a few more things to his game?
Talked about you joked about the coaches doing player development
Yeah.
seconds ago. Alex Morrow was hired as a director of player development.
Yeah.
And is a very unique approach.
Yeah.
Why was it so important to bring in someone like that?
I think when you're coaching the NBA, you think all the answers are in the NBA. There's actually people doing a lot of great things outside the NBA. So I definitely think I've always been one that sought, what are people, doing outside? And he was one of those, part of a small circle that had, maybe it was a different way of thinking and quite honestly matched with a lot, the way I thought about development so yeah, it's been a great addition. Definitely different approach. Definitely not the traditional approach. Really glad to have him.
How do you think it's helped the team so far?
I think we'll judge that with long-term results, right? Because when you do, when you have a different approach, especially in the NBA, the first thing is like, whoa, like, what is this? What are they doing? So it's getting the buy-in from the staff first, and the players. But you gotta have a conviction. You gotta believe in it, right? And you gotta sell your staff and your players on it. So we're still in that process. The games are gonna reveal if it's quote unquote works or not. But we definitely have a pretty unified philosophy on where we're going with this.
You've been in so many different places. How do you pair it all together? You want to steal from this, you want to take from this, you want to put your own stuff in. How do you put it all together this time around?
Dave, it's the biggest challenge. If you say, what's the number one challenge? How do you have this wealth of information, especially when you've been in the league a while, especially when you have experience, and how do you pare it down?
Yeah.
Right. And how do you pare it down where it fits your team,
Right.
your personnel, right? But I can take things from, I definitely can cherry pick stuff.
Yeah.
In Golden State, we played with two bigs a lot. Loon and Draymond. Not saying that's JA and Evan. They're kind of different, but there are definitely some things you can. We talked about, my experience in France and how we approach attacking a switch. It's different from the NBA. And I can definitely take some things from that experience. But yeah, paring it down is and that's where me and we have these discussions.
Yeah.
And then when we decide, though, it's like there's real intention when we
Yeah.
practice, right? Like in our pre-practice stuff, Especially the individual stuff, individual vitamins or multivitamins, we call them, we're very intentional about what we're teaching. If we pared it down
Right.
and we focused it to,
Right.
not 80 things, but 3 things.
Do you have the personnel to run the split effectively here? Split action?
Yeah, we do. We do. But again, that's unique to the Warriors.
Right.
And that's something like, we've definitely done some breakdowns on it, but we got to see how that evolves.
All right.
And we got to see what sticks with this team. So, yeah.
Ethan.
Coach, good to see you. Day
Great.
4 of the camp. What was the emphasis on today? You guys have kind of gone in different directions almost each different day. What were the emphases for today's practice?
Yeah, more of a play day today. We did a lot of teaching yesterday. So we played more, but definitely with this team, I'd say when I was with younger teams, it was more play, because you had to see more guys. You had to, really kind of make sure everybody gets their opportunity. I do think this is a little more focused on the main group. So yeah, it's probably half teaching, half play. And then the players asked me during the practice, when are we going to play? They asked me like 10 times today. And we got one more breakdown, then we're gonna play. But we got after it with controlled scrimmage, and then we played a couple 4-minute games live, play it like a 4th quarter.
And then also, obviously, you guys have been practicing playing against each other for the betterment of a month now. How
Yeah.
important is it going to be to get active against other opponents, and how much are you and your staff and also the players looking forward to that opportunity?
We're still not tired of each other, luckily. It's still been pretty good because we're mixing the teams up. They're doing good, good job like that, no fights yet. That's when it's good. Really not even any like arguments or guys getting into it. So I still think we're in a good space there. Give it a couple of days, right? And we're gonna be ready for some different competition.
Spencer.
Hey, coach, just talking in terms of Evan's usage, spiking, the way that this team has been constructed the last few years, a lot of stuff is going through Donovan and Darius. Just adding that ball handler into this, how does that kind of process feel out? And how do you find that balance between those 3 and even, other guys on the floor that are going to handle the ball?
I think in today's NBA, that's kind of where it's going with the really good teams. There's multiple ball handlers, right? You can look at teams. You just think about it. Look at teams, across the league, and there's a big that can handle. There's guard, probably two, a guard and a perimeter guy that can handle. So, that's kind of what there's Jokic, but there's also Jamal Murray, right? Like. So every kind of that traditional where kind of just one guy handled it 90% of the John Stockton, right? He had it in his hands all the time. He was running the show. I think that the league's changed. I think it's a multi ball handler league, multi usage league, and I know from a defensive standpoint that's the toughest to guard. When you can just lock in on one guy. One action that they run that's easy to guard. And I quite honestly, I think that's why the offensive efficiency in this league is just going to record level, right? Like you can't focus on one thing. Now you got to focus on 3 different ball handlers. And that's really difficult to guard. So we want to get to that point where you got Donovan, you got you got Darius, and you got Evan. Now you got kind of the 3-headed monster. And then JA's really made strides as that trail big ball handler. So, when he comes in, when he's in that spread unit with that second unit, you can add him to the mix too. So, I think it should be pretty hard to guard.
How long do you think, or what kind of experience does it take to recognize those reads though in real time and
Yeah.
also in the development?
It's going to be growing pains, Scotty Barnes has gone through it, right? Giannis went through it, right? Like, and not necessarily saying that Evans was good, right? But like, he's, you know, he's a young player and we're gonna up his usage. I think we have to expect some growing pains and we're okay with that, right? I think this is a long-term look. You're thinking, you know, end to see how does this keep getting better? But there's definitely gonna be some bumps on the way. You're gonna say, oh man, Evan had 3 turnovers. Well, that's part of it, right? That's part of the growth. You know, we're just we're gonna learn, you know, he's gonna learn through it, we're gonna learn through it. We're gonna learn how to put him in better situations through those mistakes.
Kevin,
Hey Kenny, hope you're doing well.
Hey.
Donovan had stressed this, you had stressed this too. I think a difference in competition is going to be, you know, a little bit of a welcome sight just to kind of maybe test on what you guys have been working on at camp so far. But what for you is kind of like a barometer or template for success just when you are facing different competition in Chicago later this week or early next week rather?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, especially, you know, especially in the exhibition games, you know, the preseason games, it's 100% focused on our process, you know, and I don't even, obviously always competing to win, but also really focusing on our, you know, kind of key performance indicators, we call them, like how are we, you know, are we really kind of improving in the areas we're trying to improve. And we kind of all know what they are, right? Like, hey, how's that big lineup doing? How they do? Do we see progress there? You know, how are Darius and Donovan meshing? What does that look like? So yes, compete and win always, but also keeping an eye on, you know, our improvement areas. You know, how's our pace? You know, are we kicking the ball ahead? Are we getting to the corners, right? Kind of hammering, you know, all that stuff home against different competition.
And Darius had mentioned the kind of the at least ballpark goal for you is for him to take about 8 to 9 threes a night. Do you stand by that number? Or he's just like, you know, it just kind of varies on
8
the
to 9.
competition. And,
What does
yeah,
he
8 to
take
9.
now? How many? 6. I think it's reasonable. I think it's reasonable. You know, I don't see that. I don't see that as a crazy number. Conservatively, is it 8? You know, let's, you know how that goes. You know, I'd love, but the other part of that, I'd love to look at, you know, when I look at the second spectrum data, like he's getting, you know, 10% more open shot, you know, that's going to be part of, you know, part of our job as a staff. And we're already stressing to our bigs, you know, we got to be even a better, we're good screening. We got to be a great screening team to get those guys shots, because we got 2 of the best shooters in the league. And can we make those shots easier for those guys?
Jackson.
Donovan and Isaac have talked about how your more analytics approach. Is there more to it than just increasing pace and, you know, more threes?
You know, there's so much data coming at you now, and it's really, it's back to David's question. How do we narrow all this great data down? What was the one I'll give you an example. Jared Allen is in a 97th percentile in offensive rebounding percentage. That's incredible. But there's a lot of nuance, but you know, what's your next question after that? Well, how does he rebound when him and Evan play together? Right?
Yes.
So and then there's layers behind that. And then what's the lineup around him? So this stuff can never stop, but just one single question, like one single analytical answer kind of leads to another and from my perspective, I'm looking like, well, how can that help the team? But, you know, and what's tied to that? And then from a development standpoint, like what does that look like? You know, I'm Coach C, you know, working with Jared or Evan. Now, when Evan's on the court alone, like the rebounding numbers aren't great. For me as a coach, I can use those numbers. And man, you could really help us by when we are in that spread line up here, and if we need you to rebound more, right? Because you are in the second percentile, or whatever. So it's fascinating. It's one of the I really enjoy it. And everybody says, "Oh, you really?" I'm more interested and curious than an expert, if that makes sense.
Joe, Coach.
Yeah.
That's what I think. There's kind of a personal question.
Yeah.
as a head coach, when your staff, when your players have questions, need advice, they go to you. As a head coach, who do you go to when you might need advice or? have
Oh
questions?
man, I have so many mentors in the business, that's a great thing about the NBA. That's a great thing about coaches. They are open and sharing. Like if I call Greg Popovich about something, he'll give me an answer. I call Bud, I call Mike D'Antoni, I call, any Rick Adelman. Like I text with Rick's fourth and all-time wins and I have this this a group that I can always call. And then I have assistants that I've worked with in the past that I respect, and I'll call them. So yeah,
Kenny, you were with Ty Jerome in Golden State.
yeah,
And he went through a lot last year.
Yeah.
Cavs only played 2 games, so but still kind of getting a feel for him. Does he look like the guy from Golden State to you? How's
better,
really?
better. He's really, if you want to open gym / first 3 days of training, he's been one of our top players. Just been really, he's shooting the heck out of the ball. I think, and he's shooting it freely and without hesitation. I think I told him in Golden State, I used to say, "Hi, like you're a really good shooter. Like you got to let that thing fly, right? Like that's is the new NBA. Like, so he's letting it fly and he's making them. And I think he's really focused on his bot, right? He had that bad injury. And you know how guys, they just flip the switch. It's like, oh my God, like that guy, and again, you're talking about our team, like guys that really have shifted to a more performance, like the performance part for me. I told him I said, how much better are you going to get at basketball? Like you're smart, you can shoot, you can pass, like come on, you got to, you got to move better, you got to get your body right. And so that's his development piece, right? And I think he's really embraced that, and he is playing really, really well.
Your roster is unique. You have a bunch of different guys that
Yeah.
can run a team and handle, and you can stagger Darius and Donovan and have Donovan be the de facto backup point guard. Is there
Yeah.
room for somebody like that?
Yeah, there's room, especially if you're playing 10 guys or 11 something. And there's always room. Especially when a guy's playing that well, if he continues to play well, he's gonna push for minutes. So I've not done the rotations yet, so don't ask me, but yeah, you keep asking. Hey, go ahead, keep asking. But that'll play out. But yeah, there's room for him. You could argue, is he I'm not gonna say it. Let's just wait, but he's playing great and hope it continues.